Thank you so much for joining us for the virtual hiring events overview today. So what we will cover, I will begin today's training with an overview of the virtual events and scheduling. James Rich will then discuss how to prepare and run a smooth virtual event, and Suman Lisinski will finish today's training with the post-event follow-up expectations and requirements. As mentioned during yesterday's training, the three virtual hiring services are Portland Virtual Roadshow, or PVRS, is for employers who travel to the CIEE headquarters in Portland, Maine to interview students via Skype. These employers are typically larger employers who hire students from many different countries. The Virtual Roadshow Hiring Service, or VRS, is for employers who interview students via Skype from their home offices with the support of CIEE staff in Portland. Virtual Recruit, or VRCT, is for smaller employers and popular destinations who allow CIEE to hire on their behalf. So I'm now going to talk a bit about the differences between scheduling for the virtual hiring services. Flexibility is key when you're working with a hiring events team to schedule your virtual interviews. For all virtual roadshow and virtual recruit events, we will schedule events based on two factors: agent and student availability, and employer CIEE recruiter availability. For virtual roadshow events, James will be in touch with you to discuss setting up event dates. Depending on your enrollment process, you may decide to set a date for the event before you've enrolled students, or you may choose to work on filling your enrollments prior to setting an interview date. Employers interviewing from their offices may have instructed CIEE to schedule interviews only on certain days or certain times. Therefore, while Virtual Roadshow is still more flexible than Portland Virtual Roadshow, we still need to abide by their schedule while keeping in mind the students' availability. As far as scheduling for virtual recruit events, we can schedule an event with any combination of employers and jobs as soon as students are enrolled. Once employers are added to your virtual recruit allocations, Suman will be in touch with you to discuss your event scheduling preferences. Please note, virtual recruit interviews will be scheduled to take place Monday through Friday. Should you need an exception to this, please let us know and we'll be happy to discuss. For both virtual roadshow and virtual recruit events, you will receive an Outlook calendar invitation for the date and time of the event. These calendar invitations include a lot of relevant information, including the Skype ID for the employer or CIEE recruiter, the CIEE event manager, the date and time of the event, and the video presentation link. The subject of the event will contain the local time for all parties involved. We always attempt to send correct time conversions, taking daylight savings time into consideration, but it could be incorrect. Please double check to make sure the time is calculating correctly and let us know if you have any questions. If you are not using Outlook, please note that the invitations we send may not transfer completely or correctly due to a different email provider. The process for scheduling Portland Virtual Roadshow interviews is different than for other virtual hiring services because employers make prior arrangements to travel to Portland to conduct their interviews. Therefore, scheduling Portland Virtual Roadshow interviews is much more restricted, and there is not a lot of flexibility to change the interview schedule once it has been released. Whenever an employer agrees to hire students through the Portland Virtual Roadshow hiring service, they select the specific PVRS event to attend at the beginning of the hiring season. The employer may be interviewing students on any one of the dates for that particular event. We will tell you the particular event an employer will attend at the time we notify you that a new allocation has been added to Hiring Assistant and to your website. Please make sure to tentatively block your calendar with the PVRS event dates at that time, as I will be scheduling your interviews for one of the dates that the event will take place. As you are enrolling students to PVRS events, please ensure that they are available on the designated event dates. If you or the students have any scheduling limitations, please let me know as far in advance as possible so I can try to take these things into consideration when preparing the event schedule. I will send you a specific date and time for interviews via email approximately 2 weeks before the event. PVRS events can be very complicated because they involve a large number of agencies from all over the world and multiple employers interviewing students simultaneously. Therefore, I want to thank you in advance for your flexibility when it comes to PVRS event schedules. These are the event dates for the summer 2019 Portland Virtual Roadshow season. Please note all events will be held Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, except for the events held in December. December PVRS 1 will take place Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and December PVRS 2 will take place on Tuesday and Wednesday. Please note you may or may not be invited to attend every PVRS event. It will just depend on employer sign-ups. I've already been in touch with you all to confirm your availability for these events, but please let me know if you have any changes to your availability and/or if you have questions about scheduling. As a quick refresher from yesterday, remember that Event Manager tells CIEE which students will be coming to the events. Hiring Assistant will tell CIEE how many students are interested in a particular employer, and marketing websites are where students can find job profiles and information on the jobs. Using your judgment and the special requirements documents which Hiring Events provides, it's up to you to make the best enrollments for virtual events. We always hope for 100% hiring at any virtual event, and your involvement helps to achieve that by making practical enrollments. For example, please do not enroll male students for a female-only position and vice versa. Please do not enroll someone who is at an intermediate level of English to an advanced position. And please make sure students' availability matches the start dates and end dates that the employer is looking for. If you have any questions about special requirements or possible employer flexibility, please reach out to Hiring Events. If employers change their requirements, we will definitely keep you informed. So I'm going to pass this over to James to discuss how to run a smooth virtual event.
Thank you, Meg. Hi, everyone. And before I jump into that, I just wanted to touch base a little bit about Skype. We will continue to use Skype for our virtual hiring this year. Meg and I did a bit of research this summer to ensure we are using the best platform to conduct our virtual interviews. For those of you who helped in the process, we greatly appreciated your insight. At the end of our review, Skype continues to be the best option for all sending countries participating in our virtual hiring services. Now, preparing for a smooth virtual event. For Virtual Roadshow and Virtual Recruit, there will be a link to the CIEE virtual presentation video included in the body of the Outlook calendar invitation you receive. For Portland Virtual Roadshow, this link will be included in the body of the scheduling email you receive a couple of weeks before the event. All students must watch this video before they sit down in front of the computer to interview. The video covers what they should expect during their interviews and will provide them with some interview do's and don'ts. We want all students to have a fair interview and to not be restricted by poor internet connections. Therefore, when setting up an interview station, please ensure that the internet connection bandwidth is meeting the requirements for Skype video. The Hiring Events team can suggest free online websites to test your download and upload speed, which will show you the exact bandwidth for your setup. Please feel free to reach out to us on this. Agent staff is responsible for testing Skype and internet connections, with students interviewing from a satellite office or from remote locations during the summer 2019 hiring season. Some items to consider while testing connections. Students should be signed into Skype at a Skype ID provided to CIEE. If any student is using a different Skype ID, please alert the CIEE event manager immediately. If this is during the day of the event, it is always best to reach out via Skype, as we might not be readily checking our email. Please make sure that all students have a working headset and webcam. Make sure that all students have arrived to the satellite office, if applicable, and are ready to interview. Make sure that the interview location is appropriate. Students should be in a well-lit, quiet area. And then also just confirming that the student's presentation is appropriate, including their clothing and hair. As you and your staff are setting up for each virtual event, here are a few expectations to consider. Students should be interviewing on computers with hardwired internet. Please no wireless connections or cell phone interviews. We do have a strong preference for interviews to be conducted from your offices. This makes it easier to address any issues during the event. Students should be wearing a headset or earbuds with a microphone. Students should interview alone and in a quiet place. If coaching is suspected, a student will not be hired. If any student does not have a complete Beacon resume, CIEE will not allow them to interview at any type of virtual hiring event. If we're having trouble connecting with a student interviewing from home, we will move them to the end of the session and ask them to find a place with a more reliable connection. This is an example of a completed roster. You must submit a completed roster for each event at least 3 workdays prior to the event date. We will send you a template many times throughout the season, though please let us know if you need another copy. On the roster, you will indicate which students are attending the event and in which order they are interviewing. Students will interview in the order they appear on the roster. You will also provide the Skype ID for each student. If students are interviewing from the same location, they can use the same Skype ID. Please indicate any friends traveling together, as well as each student's employer and job preference. As a reminder, for Virtual Recruit only, students must be enrolled to both a specific employer and job title. For PVRS and VRS events, students may indicate a job preference, but should be flexible to accept any position at the employer's suggestion. A note regarding timing: on average, each interview should take between 12 to 15 minutes. That being said, there are times when an employer is interviewing quicker or slower than average. We appreciate your patience and flexibility. In these cases, the event manager will be in touch with you to discuss any alterations to the roster. For example, if the student is taking a bit longer to interview and you have a student who needs to leave to take an exam, we want to make sure that we're moving them up, so we will keep the communication throughout the entire event. Please do your best to have all students available and ready to begin their interviews at the event start time. During each event, you will be required to have a designated person from your office online and available to help troubleshoot, answer questions, or support students. This does not need to be you, and it does not need to be the same person every time, but this person must be trained appropriately in virtual processes, and their contact information should be shared with the hiring events team well in advance of the event. I know many of you have satellite offices where students will interview. In these cases, you should have a staff member at each office available in communication with the CIEE event manager. All offices should be aware of the event timing and in agreement on roster order and timing of the interviews. Students should also be prepared for their interviews. Please encourage them to research some typical interview questions on the internet and practice with a friend. They can practice asking and answering questions with each other in English. Students should spend time reviewing the marketing websites and reviewing job profiles prior to their interviews. They should tell the employer or CIEE recruiter that they've already read these materials and be prepared to explain the basic responsibilities of the employer or position they're interested in. The student's appearance will be their first impression. Please remind them to dress appropriately and be professional. Encourage students to answer questions with more than just a single word. Offering a fuller explanation offers assurance that the student has the requisite English ability. If a student does not have the experience for a position, please encourage them to be ready to explain why they would be a good fit for the employer. They should also be prepared to speak on their past experiences, either with work, school, or community service, their strengths, characteristics, and more. Students should listen carefully to their interviewer. If they do not understand a question, please encourage them to ask for clarification. And lastly, it doesn't hurt to smile. I'm going to pause for any questions. Okay, great. I'm going to pass it on to Sun to talk about event follow-up.
Thank you very much, James. I will now speak about event follow-up. So the nature of virtual interviews precludes the actual signing of a job offer form, or JOF, by student and employer at the time of interview. Thus, CIE considers verbal acceptance of a job offer as equally valid and binding. To ensure that students are fully informed of all the details of their offer, CIEE will enforce the COE policy according to this chart. Some things to consider: when is the job offered, on the spot or following the event? Was the job offered by the same employer for which the student was enrolled, or a new employer? So these are some things to consider. A signed JOF must be returned to CIEE within 5 days of each virtual event. You will be able to download all JOFs from a single event from the representative reports. If a student's job is canceled for any reason, they will likely qualify for job replacement. If students have any questions regarding their employers, including date changes, housing deposits, arrival details, paperwork, etc., please do your best to use the resources you have available, including the marketing website and job profile. You can also encourage the student to get in touch with their new employer directly. This is often the quickest and most effective way for students to get answers to their questions. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact the Hiring Events team. As a reminder, agencies should not contact employers directly. Students are encouraged to be in contact with their employers after the event, but when the agent contacts the employer, it may cause confusion. Let us help if the student is having any problems getting in touch with their employer. Here is a screenshot of how to download JOFs from Rep Reports, and you can find full instructions on the Agent Resource Center. Any questions at this point in time? Okay, looks like we don't have any questions. We want to thank you for attending this presentation. And if you have any questions, any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us at our inbox, hiringevents@ciee.org. Here is a list of virtual hiring resources for easy access. You can also go on the Agent Resource Center, where you can find a lot of helpful tips and webinars and presentations, etc. And we will be posting this presentation on the Agent Resource Center sometime next week. And as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.